Here with the creative director of gameplay,
Kantcho Doskov, yeah.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
We have been working together for FC26 in the Design Council. Can you just give just a quick overview on what the Design Council is and what your role is and how we've been helping?
Oh yeah. So the Design Council is a group of community members like yourself who come and visit EA throughout the year, and we talk over Zoom every month just about the game and what are the hot topics? What are the things that you guys care about? Like, what should we change in the game? What should we improve? What should we focus on? And that's invaluable feedback because you guys play the game all the time, as do we, but we're busy making the game, so we need somebody who plays the game even more to tell us how to make it better.
Okay, so a big thing in FC26 is this year, a lot of our feedback is being taken into consideration. What was the roadmap like? So we walked through, I work at the Design Council, some of the viewers may know about that. So how does our feedback get integrated in? Because we have the new FC feedback where viewers at home and people at home that maybe are not part of the Design Council, they can also give their feedback. Can you explain how that's taken into consideration?
That's right. So there's the new FC Feedback Hub, or the portal, they call it. So if you were to have some feedback about FC, let's say I want dribbling to be better, then you can put that in. You can even put in a video there if there's some example of a specific case that you felt there was some sluggishness. And then we'll see those comments, we'll see those videos, and we'll analyze them frame by frame. We'll look at like where the problem actually occurred. We'll try to reproduce those in our testbed software where we have all the debug information. We'll work with our engineers and animators to try to fix those problems and make the game feel better.
That's one thing I wanted to mention. A lot of people at home, they thought that only I give the feedback, but actually it's everyone collectively that gives their feedback. And even you at home, you might have something about the game or maybe something you want to change. You can go ahead and send the feedback over as well. So one of the main things that you probably, as you know, I'm a tutorial guy. We've been working quite a lot over the last few years. Responsiveness was a thing that was always a bit of an iffy point because the game kind of was responsive, but sometimes it wasn't responsive at all. So what's changing this year? Because we know there's the first touches, the first time passes.
Yeah.
What is that? Can you explain how that makes the game more responsive and specifically the animations?
Yeah. I mean, we heard so much over the last few years that the game, sometimes when it's unresponsive, i.e. bad gameplay, it's just not fun. And we totally recognize that if there's unresponsiveness in the game, whether it's online or offline, it's not as fun as it should be. So we did so much research. We went to Europe, we went to people's homes just to see how it feels for them. And we found that while there are some maybe online connectivity issues, a lot of it was just the actual game, the offline version of the game. There are problems with the animations, there's problems with the transitions from one animation to the other. And we've spent the whole year just trying to fix all of those problems. And now we're at a point where, if you take an example, passing, first time passing, now you can be one frame away from controlling the ball and still request a pass, and you'll still get that pass. And that is the most responsive passing that we've ever had in FC.
So a lot of you guys have to play that when the beta does come out. So those of you that get selected will be able to play that in August. One thing I want to talk about is left stick dribbling. So left stick dribbling has also been a sticky point. It's kind of always, sometimes it's been good, sometimes it's bad, especially in bad gameplay. How has left stick dribbling changed to make the game not only more responsive, but to make dribbling more fluid?
Yeah, there's been so many changes just to the left stick dribbling to make it more fluid and responsive. So the amount of touches, we call it the touch interval time. So after how many frames does the player touch the ball? We've reduced that so that it's touch, 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 touch instead of touch, touch, touch. So the old way was more realistic, you could argue, but actually when there's faster touches, it just makes your left stick feel like you're directly in control of the dribbler. So that's one thing, the touch intervals. Then there's the animation playback. So how fast the player can do the animations of dribbling. So it used to be that really tall players, or the taller you were, the slower the animations would be. And that was kind of the risk versus reward of maybe you're taller and you can reach the ball further versus a smaller, more agile player. But that difference was so huge. It just meant when you were a taller player, you were slow at dribbling. So we refined that so that even when you're a big player or a small player, you can be very responsive at just taking a dribble turn.
So that was an important key thing, because if you remember, I was always telling you guys, you have to use a player that's either very short, and I used to always say focus on high agility and balance, someone that's short, That way you'll get the best almost left stick movement. So now the taller players, if I'm not mistaken, let's say someone like Haaland, they're a bit more agile on the ball, whereas before they were a bit more clunky and truck-like. Is that correct?
Yes. And so there is still a difference between the best, most agile dribblers and maybe a taller, more lumbering type of player. But everyone, even I would say, even if you try playing with or dribbling with a goalkeeper or a center back, that's going to feel miles better than it did last year or in previous versions of the game. And the reason is because we said, well, like when we looked at left stick dribbling, we looked at all the players, not just the best dribblers, but even the worst dribblers. And it was a chasm. It was the difference was so huge that it just didn't make sense for certain players like the center backs and the goalkeepers to be so bad at dribbling. Like even I could dribble better than those guys. So we've raised the bottom. We've said everyone should be at a baseline good at dribbling. The top dribblers will still stand out, but everyone needs to be better just when using left stick dribbling.
And one thing I wanted to mention, so a lot of people, they always ask me about, the age-old question was, with left stick dribbling, body types. Now body types, we see them on external third-party websites. Are body types just a wording, or is it like an algorithm? For example, like they take into account someone's height and then their pace and then agility and balance, and then they work it out. Because some people think that unique body play styles have unique movements, or someone like Neymar, does that change their left stick dribbling? So although Neymar might have different animations, does that make them better at left stick dribbling, or if someone has that unique body type?
So for left stick dribbling, it's all about the combination of attributes such as balance, dribbling, even reactions. I'm missing one here. Ball control, agility, right? It's like those 5 combine to make a player feel better or worse in left stick dribbling, along with the height. And yeah, like you could say that the shorter players will still be more agile than the taller players, but that difference will not be as great as it was before.
So that's what I was saying before, guys. Like I just always try to use the smaller players that are a bit more agile on the ball. They can move a bit better, and that was the key thing. Since we're going down that route about left stick dribbling, authentic and competitive gameplay, so now you decide to split them two up. I thought it was a brilliant idea because I felt like most of my viewers, I would say, are competitive players, but some still also play the authentic, maybe the tactics viewers. So what is the main differences? Because competitive is more quicker, faster, responsive, as we were talking about earlier with the left stick dribbling and also animations. Authentic, that's only for kickoff, correct? And it's not for squad battles either, is it? It's just kickoff, correct?
So competitive gameplay is tailored for that responsive, ultra agile type of experience, which is mandatory for Ultimate Team, like rivals, squad battles, champs. Anything in Ultimate Team is competitive. If you want to play the authentic version, you have to play either in career mode or kickoff or tournament mode. Like anything that's offline can be played in authentic mode. Clubs is competitive, for example.
So I believe it's clubs. So it's just a career mode, the player careers, and kickoff. And you can also choose between having competitive game mode in those as well, if I'm not mistaken. I believe we had a presentation on that yesterday. While we're on that topic as well, I want to talk about just gameplay. So one of the biggest issues that many people, I think, found was, for example, passing, first-time passing in particular. How has that been adjusted? I know we've been talking about it a little bit as well, but what have you changed in the passing system to kind of modify how those first-time passes are? And Trivelas, you may have seen in the pitch notes, have been completely removed from the game. Thank God. That was absolutely terrible because it was almost unrealistic. So how are all those things, especially passing, how has that made that big change in FC26?
Yeah. Well, just a note about the Trivelas. So we heard the feedback, we recognize that there are only certain players who have that unique ability to bend the ball with the outside of the foot, right? Like the Quaresma, maybe Yamal does that too, especially when crossing, right? So we wanted only those players to be able to do those Trivela passes and shots, and that's what we changed. So if you try a Trivela with any old player, you're not going to be able to do it. You're just going to do a normal shot or pass. But if they have those new playstyles, so the game changer for the shooters and the inventive for the passers, they have access to the Trivela. And that occurs contextually. So if your body shape is in the correct angle to the target, the game will contextually do a trivela pass or shot, or it can be done manually on demand. I mean, with the left trigger or L2.
So just to confirm as well, outside the box, can we do those trivelas that we did last year? Because of course green time shot has been removed, we'll talk about that in a second. But can you now still score trivelas from outside the box near the penalty arc, where you'd go to the penalty arc and then you would kind of bend them in?
It's only going to happen rarely with those really good shooters with the playstyle. So because time finishing was removed, there's no longer the ability to green time and remove all that error. So that was one of the problems with time finishing, that it was incredibly difficult to balance the game with everything else that reduced the error on shooting.
And so that's just because time shooting, for those who don't know, so when you couldn't independently adjust time shooting, it had to be finishing as a whole, and then time shooting was on top of that. Yes. So whatever you adjusted, let's say you had, for example, 10 shots going, 5 were going inside, 5 were going outside, you then had to then take into account for time shooting after, correct?
Exactly, yeah. So it just made it so that we would fix maybe some issues with time finishing, but we would make shooting overall not great for people who just normally just press the shoot button. So we wanted to remove time finishing out of the equation and just focus on shooting with precision versus assisted, get that right, and then the play styles will also help. And the other one is the attributes. If the attributes are high, you'll be more accurate with your shot.
Okay, so also, for those who don't know, David removed time finishing completely, so you can't even turn it back on. And what they've done is they replaced low driven. So now low drivens, you double tap the shoot button. So I've used it a few times. You can also do a low driven on the trivela, a power shot as well. Every shot mechanic, I believe, apart from a chip shot, because you can't do a chip shot. Let me ask you a question. What's your favorite shot type?
I personally like the low driven finesse. Yeah. I think that's one way that is very effective to hit that swerving shot to the far post,
like a
low and hard.
Right?
Yeah, just open up your body and hit that sweet and hard along the ground. So the difference with last year in 25 is that you could only just do a normal shot, right, as a low driven. Now you can do the power shot, you can do the finesse shot, you can even do trivela low driven, you can do like low driven headers, low driven volleys. Any type of shot other than the chip shot, like you mentioned, can be modified to be low driven.
And what about finishing inside the box? I know we're still currently working on that, and we've been given feedback as well, part of the design council. How is finishing being changed in FC26? One of the biggest frustrations, I would say, in 25 was when you get inside the box and you make the opportunity, sometimes you'd miss. I'm referring here, by the way, to assisted shooting as opposed to precision. So how are you changing that this year to basically align? Because I know you still want to put precision shooting as the rewarding feature, because that's the one that takes skill. But how is assisted shooting being changed?
So assisted shooting, if you're inside the box, if you're under no pressure, if you're at a good angle towards the goal, we want that to be 100% going inside the goal. Sometimes the goalkeeper may save it, but we don't want you to miss. If you're a good shooter, meaning if your attributes are high. If you're a center back in that same position, you may miss wide once or twice. But again, this is the ease. Like you've done everything right. You've worked your way into the box under no pressure, facing the goal, and you press shoot. We want that to go in. Like that should be your reward for doing all the hard work to get in there. But you will miss sometimes if the attributes are low. Like I'm talking about like 50 shoot finishing or 60 or even 70. And as the attributes go higher, closer to the 80s, the 90s, the 99s, that's when all the shots will go inside the goal. And then it's a matter of, can the goalkeeper save it or not?
Because statistically, what I normally advise my viewers is to get someone with a 5-star weak foot, because I believe a 4-star weak foot is 85% of the stats as a general rule of thumb. So if someone has 99 shooting and you take that shot with your left foot, you're getting 85% of that 99 rated stats. So something just to bear in mind. That is why I always, although it's hard to find those players, right, to get those players with a 5-star weak foot so they can score. I want to move something over just to tactics. Tactics is one of the big things that I do. I make a lot of tactical videos. What's changed in the overview from tactics before we get on to foot IQ and the AI movement per se, but what about from the tactics sense? What's been changed this year?
Well, we've added new FCIQ rules, and in general, it's just a more flexible system so that you're not stuck in the situation where you can't use your favorite player in the position that you want to play them in. So now there's, like I said, the keyword is flexibility. You should be able to play your players in any formation, in any, like obviously you're not going to put a striker as a center back or something like that, but a left winger, if you want them to play left mid, that's now as it should be. You should be able to do this, and they will be able to make the appropriate runs and not be in this kind of out of position state. So that's the big one.
Because also if I'm not mistaken, they've reduced how a player out of position plays. So, fullbacks and centre back. I still get blamed by the entire community for that, but that was actually a really good thing. But like now, you can't do that anymore. But you can, for example, play someone out of position, but the AI movement before, they would just stand there. So when you had the ball in possession, they would just stand there. They wouldn't move in your favor. But now that's been toned back, if I'm not mistaken, slightly.
Correct. So they're still going to act somewhat intelligently. Obviously, they're not going to be as good as when they have the roll plus or the plus plus. But even if they are out of position, they'll do the job that they're supposed to do.
Okay, and on that point, this is maybe more of a technical question. For the roll plus and the regular roll, what is the main difference? Is anything be adjusted with that? Because I think a lot of people find that towards the end of the cycle last year, I would always recommend a roll plus for the best AI movement. But is there like an actual big difference between a roll plus and a roll plus and a regular roll? Or like, let's say the viewers at home were to pick their team, what should they be focusing on?
Well, for me, I would at the very least try to have a roll plus. The roll plus is slightly better, but the one thing you don't want to do is put a player out of position, because they're just not going to be moving as much. They're not going to be moving as quickly into their formation position, or making the run that you see. Like in the open, there may be some open space in front of them. They need to take that space. If they have the roll plus or the plus, they'll take that. They'll be able to react quicker and actually move quicker to get there.
Okay, just a quick question as well. While we're on the roll plus, how does the attacking, well, it's not attacking awareness, it's attack positioning now it's called, right? So how does that affect the player? Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is it 60% is down to the role, familiarity, and then the other 40% is down to stats as well. So let's say you had a left mid or a right mid, and they go forward and then they go backwards. So you take into account their defensive awareness and their attack positioning. So if you wanted, for example, a 3-5-2 and you had a right mid that goes back, or let's say a fullback, you had an attacking wing back and they go forward and back. It takes into account both the defensive awareness stat, doesn't it, from out of possession, then in possession, technically speaking, it takes the attack positioning. Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. There's two positioning attributes, as you mentioned, the attacking positioning and the defensive awareness on the defensive side. The defensive awareness is key, though, because it also affects the jockey ability, as you're well aware of. So it's kind of a twofold, very important attribute to consider.
One thing I wanted to mention as well, so I focus a lot of, as you guys know, on sprint speed, because I feel like it's getting from A to B as quick as possible. Now, a lot of the community think the meta is effectively lengthy. Now, just for the record, they've reduced it to 3 now. It's explosive, controlled, and lengthy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So they got rid of mostly lengthy and so on. So people say lengthy is better, but I actually think that it's actually explosive when you're defending, because the idea is, so this is where you could prove me wrong, because everyone thinks maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not. When you have a defender, the quicker they are, they're quicker. If they're explosive, they're going to be able to accelerate as quick as possible, correct? Yes. So does that mean that technically, if someone has a through ball in behind, you're actually better off using explosive, because lengthy only takes into account, I believe, over the period of the pitch where you get the speed boost. So technically, is explosive better in that situation?
It really depends how far the through ball, like how far the distance is for the through ball. If it's a very far distance through ball and you're chasing the defender or the attacker like half of the pitch, then lengthy will be better, because the lengthy player will overtake the explosive player over a greater distance. If it's a short distance through pass, like, I don't know, 10, 15 yards, then the explosive player will have the edge over the lengthy. But if we're talking about like 45, 50 yards, lengthy will win out in the end.
Because if you think about it, most time in a game, okay, apart from the last year's first time through balls, very rarely would a player have to run all that way. Most of the time those through balls are in the final third, potentially down the wing. In fact, I used to use Quick Step and the Jockey Playstyle Plus, because most people struggle. Like Anticipate, what do you think of Anticipate and Bruiser? People think it's effective. Do you really? I personally don't. I think the Jockey Playstyle is much better. What's your general opinion? Because obviously by the way, he's actually a top tier player, by the way. We played 2 years ago, I believe, right?
Yeah. Well,
I let him win, by the way.
the jockey is important because that's tied to your left stick movement. So you can you can match what the dribbler's doing and anticipate their movements. But so the anticipate play style though is about tackling. So when you time your tackle correctly, the outcome will be better if you have the anticipate, because there's more animations for tackling and you're able to retain the ball better that way. So I would say if you're good at tackling, the anticipate playstyle. I mean, if you're not good at tackling, it'll help you. If you are good at tackling, you probably don't need it anyway. But the jockey is the one that's connected to the left stick movement. So to me, that's even more important.
And auto tackling still exists in the game, correct?
Auto tackling will happen, but it's if somebody runs into you or if you run into them. It's not, the auto tackle will not lunge out to the side to get the ball. It's literally two players coming together, and in that case, you have to tackle the ball. Otherwise, you're just going to crash into each other.
That's why I advocate positioning. Just in real life football, positioning is the most important thing in and out of possession. In my eyes, that's my logic of how I play. And I feel like if you're in a perfect position, you defend the angle towards goal. It's your job to not win the ball back, but to defend the angle towards goal. While we're on tackling, one of the new features this year is the players get stunned effectively, or they kind of get like almost like a shock. I don't know what the correct technical term would be to use this. That's when you make a tackle. What happens to the attacker? Because we saw a leak in the trailer, well, not a leak, but we saw in the trailer, every time a tackle was made, that player would almost kind of fall back a little bit for a second. Can you explain that in more detail, what's going on with that?
Okay, so yes, in order to fix the bounce backs that we've heard so many complaints about. So you tackle the player, the dribbler, but the ball comes back to the dribbler. One of the reasons was because the dribbler would somehow stumble back into the tackler's path or get the ball first. So we had to steer the stumble, the player who got dispossessed, we have to steer him away from the ball. It's that that's the only way we could guarantee that the tackler, if he does a well-timed tackle, will retain the ball by moving the dispossessed player away from the ball. Because when we did not do that, then oftentimes the dribbler would get the ball back. So we had to force the dribbler away.
How long is that? So like that player kind of, when they're like, I wouldn't say they're effectively, I don't know what the word, how would you describe that kind of terminology? I would say like a shock kind of, or
It is a stun state.
or stutter maybe.
Yeah, it's a stun state, but it's only when it's a successful dispossession. So if you tackle the dribbler and you miss the ball, the dribbler is still going to be able to get away. But if you get your foot on the ball because you've timed your tackle well, that means that the dribbler, if you collide, will stumble and will move with that stumble away from the ball for about a second and a half. And then you're in full control of that player again.
And then anticipate, does it change it in any way, anticipate?
Anticipate will...
Will it make a greater stun or anything like that?
No. The anticipate will keep the ball closer and make sure that... because there are still chances that you'll tackle the ball and it'll... Maybe the ball goes to another opponent, not the dribbler, but one of his teammates. So in that case, the anticipate will do a better job at keeping the ball to your own teammates as opposed to the opposing team.
Okay, and one question I want to ask on that. What's changed in stand tackling? Because if it's 85 and above, there's a different animation. So normally, in terms of tackling, I think they've nerfed, in effect, players below, is it 70 stand tackling, if I'm not mistaken? What's exactly changed? Because we know there's some animations, but could you provide some more detail?
Yeah, so in terms of all of the tackle animations in the game, the players who are high rated, 85 and above, will have access to all of those tackle animations. So for example, if I'm coming from the side, I can hook my foot around you and tackle the ball, which is something that great defenders can do, but somebody who's not a good defender will not have access to that ability, those animations. So somebody who's below 50 will only be able to maybe poke the ball forward and tackle the ball that way. In the 50 to 75 range or 85 range, you have to check the exact numbers, you get access to more animations, and then the elite defenders, 85 and above, will have the full set of tackle animations. So they can do a better job at getting to the ball when you time your tackle. But the reason why we did this is so that better tacklers are able to win the ball more so than somebody who's, I don't know, like Neymar, who doesn't have good tackling attributes. You don't want him to be great at tackling and doing these fantastic hook tackles and tackles from the side and and whatnot.
And one thing I wanted to quickly mention on that as well, you can still tackle the ball though. So if you have a player, so I normally say if you technically with 10 stand tackling, you can still win the ball, right? As long as you time it correctly, isn't that? So technically, what does the stand tackling actually do, like in a general overview? Because does it increase the likelihood of the tackle actually happening? Because technically, if you have the ball, let's say your opponent has the ball in their own half and you have a striker like Cristiano Ronaldo and you tackle the ball, you can still get the ball with 30 tackling, if I'm not mistaken, correct? So what exactly does that tackling stat do? Let's say, for example, to an attacker. Does it change anything in terms of the way, because they can still get the ball, right?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, it does limit the amount of animations that player has access to. But in addition to that, it's the time. It makes timing the tackle harder. So the lower the attribute, the harder it is to be precise at timing the tackle. Meaning you push the button, and you have to be perfectly timed in order to win the ball with a low-rated tackler. The higher the rating of the stand tackle attribute, the more forgiving the timing is. So maybe I'm not exactly perfect on that frame when the ball's right there to be won. I could be a frame or two earlier or a frame later. And the game, because of that high attribute, will assist the defender to get to the ball.
Okay, well, I think that is everything, Kantcho. Thank you very, very much. For those who don't know, Kantcho's actually a top tier player as well. So I think we played, was it 2 years ago?
A couple of years ago.
So I can now formally announce that I'm part of the design council. So I've been to EA a few times. You may have seen some pictures. I wasn't allowed to say it before. But Kantcho, thank you very, very much for providing all the information. And thanks for also answering my questions that I do have to you. But don't forget the FC portal. I'll leave the link down below in the description for the FC portal where you can provide your feedback. But again, thank you very much.
See ya.
Neil from the future here. I've actually been playing this game even earlier than this event. I'm going to make a full video tomorrow where I go over the gameplay, go over everything. I couldn't mention it because it was under wraps. I was under NDA. But everyone, the creators went to Vancouver, including myself, went to play the game in Vancouver. But I've been playing the game for even longer than that. I can't tell you how long, but even longer than that. So I'm going to give you my impressions. I can formally give you my impressions. Again, the embargo was 20 seconds, so that's why there was no content. But I will go over this. So this interview, although I had certain many things I wanted to talk about, I didn't. I'll go over that in tomorrow's video. I literally just got off the flight now, so apologies if I am probably not even pronouncing my words properly. No sleep in 24 hours, but I need to get this video out. So I'm going to clean up the audio a little bit. One thing I wanted to mention, so I know I mentioned some of you that I was doing a stream and people will ask me, oh yeah, where's the stream? There was no stream because when I was doing the interview, I was only given 25 minutes hard stop. It was later on in the day, and like, first of all, thanks to the developers being generous enough for taking time out of their day to do these interviews in the first place. But it was quite late in the day at 25 minutes, so I didn't want to. I had a developer next to me, so I didn't want to waste time, his precious time, setting up the stream. So I just got straight and recorded a video immediately. So I'm going to clean up the audio as best as I can. You've probably seen it already with the background noises. But I only got that interview. So that's why I was 25 minutes. That's why I was speaking extremely fast in the video, because I wanted him to explain as much as he could in that 25 minutes. And I could always just dub myself back in if I need to. But that's why probably sometimes I was speaking super fast. Yeah, so that was that. So massive thanks again to Kantcho for taking his time out of his day to give me the interview. A really nice guy. Top guy as well. And of course, massive thanks to everyone else at EA, the devs, everyone that I was speaking to, listen to my feedback. And of course, thank you very much for EA for organizing this event and those involved for the hospitality as well. Perfect, as usual. So yeah, the video will come out tomorrow. I've not slept yet, so I'm probably gonna have like a 1 or 2 hour nap because I'm running on empty on 24 hours now, no sleep. And then what I'll do is 1 2 hour nap, and then I will make the video tonight, and then I will release that tomorrow. That will be a gameplay one. And then I'm going to also give you some tips in those videos. If you're part of the Patreon, you're going to see something very exclusive very, very soon. To get ahead of the game, I'm going to put that stuff on Patreon this year. But I'll also release that for the public as well. But those in the Patreon, you're going to get in. You're in for something special. I'm doing something new, bit different this year. To kind of get people ready for FC26. Let's see. But yeah, look, we'll go over the gameplay stuff tomorrow. The pitch notes, there's so much to read. The pitch notes, I've already read it a bit earlier, but we're going to go over that as well. I wanted to ask Kantcho a lot of technical questions, but I also wanted to mention the feedback, because I think a lot of people ask me, look, Neil, I'm not part of the gameplay design council, but I want to give the feedback. This year's a bit more open. I know historically speaking, it might have been a bit hard to give feedback, or maybe you gave feedback, but you felt you weren't getting a response, if that makes sense, to be candid. And it's myself included as well in that. But with this new FC feedback, you can give feedback yourself. And the reason I want to say the importance of this is that, look, if I say something, let's say Travellas are bad outside the box. If no one else says the same thing as me, no one is going to believe me. Maybe now my reputation and everyone knows I've got a very good understanding of the game and I predict the game every year. Maybe it's a bit different, but you know what I'm trying to say. But if everyone says that, we're going to get a better game. That's the aim for me, is I want everyone to give their feedback. It doesn't matter what level you are, what kind of player you are, give your feedback. And I would recommend explain what level you are roughly when you give the feedback. Talk about what you found the issue is, because sometimes it might be an issue that you think it's an issue, but it might not be you're doing it correctly or whatever. So explain what you were doing, what you're trying to do, and try to have your controller in the top right corner so they can see frame by frame what is going on as well. I think if you're asking me, I can tell you from being a coach myself, you have to be very detailed in what's happening in situation, why was it happening, what were you trying to do. Whenever you submit a clip, expect you're giving this clip to a 5-year-old. That's probably the best advice I can give you, because that way you can explain everything and other people can see that clip and they can be like, oh yes, I had that situation. Don't just post a clip and say, this game is broken. That doesn't help. You have to be constructive. Just like people post my videos saying, oh no, this. But the constructive comments, I always love them. But yes, that was important, because at the end of the day, if all of us collectively come together, we can improve the game. And ultimately, that's the main thing for me. As long as the fundamentals of basic football are there for me, I'm more than happy. Gameplay experience, I want to be talking about that tomorrow. I've got to go through all these notes. I got like 10,000 words worth of notes here. I'm going to have to go through and put that together, and then I'll make a video. So I'll go over the pitch notes. I'll go over my gameplay experience. There's some things that are still locked under NDA. So Ultimate Team and stuff like that. I know you've seen some other creators with the devs. I think Foot Accountant did one as well. Make sure you check that out and check out, of course, other creators. Some things are under wraps, under NDA. So some things I still can't talk about, but those will come in time. So we're going to go through all of that. That is basically everything. I can't even speak anymore. My mouth is basically finished. I don't think you want to hear me blabber anymore anyway in the first place. But I'll upload this video. Hopefully the audio is okay. Apologies any audio issues, but of course I'm going to prioritize getting Kantcho's voice as clear as possible. And he actually gave us some really good tips, some really good inside information as well. Things that maybe we had like questions upon. And there's some things that I personally asked them anyway that maybe I can, like certain things like gameplay that I can make a video on. And fingers crossed we could do more interviews like this. I think it's a really good step forward. Anyway, look, forget the nonsense of me blabbering. I'll catch you tomorrow in tomorrow's video. It's a bit more formal.